Good morning, students. You're welcome to your beautiful biology class once more. Today we are going to be dealing with the topic, the importance of biology to agriculture, the two sister subjects. The topic says the importance of biology to agriculture. Now, we're going to be looking into a lot of things concerning this topic as regards the scientific study of biology, how it affects agriculture and agricultural activities, and how it affects even the yields that are obtainable in agriculture. How has biology influenced agriculture as a subject? So, even before we go into it, I know you have this predisposition of what biology is to agriculture. So far, biology is the study of living organisms. It has a lot to do with agriculture because agriculture deals with the cultivation and the rearing of living organisms that are useful to mankind. And so as we go on in this subject matter, you are going to learn a lot concerning the scientific effect of biological studies to agricultural activities. Let's go on with our specific objectives. At the end of this lesson, I should be able to define the importance of biology to agriculture. State the importance of biology to agriculture. In other words, you mention specifically those areas or those positive effects, as the case may be, of biology to agriculture. Our last specific objective will be describe how biology has influenced agriculture. As a matter of fact, this topic, the relevance of biology to agriculture, is a very wide topic. And so we will treat a part of it for today, and wherever we end it, we'll continue in our next class. And so let's go to the first part of our specific objective, which is define the importance of biology to agriculture. The definition goes like this: the importance of biology to agriculture can be defined as the effects of biological studies to the development and application of agriculture. Now, broadly speaking, agriculture can be divided into two major parts. We have the crop production and we have the animal production part of agriculture. These are the two main branches of agriculture. The first part dealing with plants, the other part dealing with animal production. Now, if you look at it, crop and animals, they are living organisms, and none is classified as a non-living organism. They are all living organisms, they all possess characteristics of living things, they all are made up of the basic units of life called cells. And you can't take it away from biology because biology is the anchor, if I may say. Biology is the mother of agriculture. Without biology, agriculture cannot be. Now, as the definition has specifically stated, that the importance of biology to agriculture can be defined as the effects. Now, those biological studies, those scientific studies of life, how does it affect? Its effect to the development and application of agriculture is what is known as the relevance or the importance of biology to agriculture. So we are going to see how these studies of biological aspect influences development and application of agriculture and agricultural activities. Now, we'll look at some of this relevance, or what I may say, importance of biology to agriculture. Let's specifically mention some of those areas in which biology has affected agriculture. Number one, in the study of the characteristics and classification of living things. You know, in biology, the first few topics you need to study are these ones I just mentioned now, which include characteristics and classification of living things. So when you talk about characteristics of living things, you're talking about the attributes that makes an object or a substance to be recognized as a living thing. What are those things that an object can portray or a substance can exhibit, and you can now say that this thing is a living thing? That is under the characteristics of living things. And then we have classification of living things. In these two areas, biology has greatly influenced agriculture, as we're going to be detailing these things out in the ways they have affected agriculture. Of course, without the characteristics of living things, you can't even know which one is a crop and which one is a plant. But all of them are broadly brought under this or classified under the characteristics of living things. They all exhibit the same characteristics, general characteristics, which in a nutshell is called Mr. Niger card. I hope you know the details, of course. You've been taught the characteristics. And then the classifications, which gives us some clues into the different categories of living things, where they belong to, maybe as a result of their structural peculiarities and differences that they might possess between one another, for us to be able to distinguish one organism from the other. It has also helped agriculture in a great way. We'll see all of this. Now, the next area that biology has greatly affected agriculture is in anatomical and physiological studies of living things. Now, what is anatomy? Anatomy has to do with the study of the internal organs of a living organism. For instance, in human beings, when we begin to deal with the internal organs like the heart as an organ, the lungs, the digestive, the stomach, and the rest of the digestive system, as regards all those parts of the internal areas of a human being. Now, that is called anatomy. When you study it, it's called anatomy, the study of such. Now, we also have physiological studies of living things. In other words, the biochemical reactions that go on within those organs. How are those organs able to work with one another in order to achieve a whole living organism called man? As in this case, this also applies to plants and other animals. So the anatomical and physiological studies of living things, the internal and the reactions, biochemical reactions that go on within their body, helps in agriculture to understand how plants grow, how animals grow as well, how their nutrients are digested, and how it is being utilized in their various bodies. This has to do with physiological studies and is all under biology. The next one we'll look into is in the studies of pests and diseases of plants and animals. When we study the pests and diseases that attack animals, it helps the farmer to know how to curtail the effects of pests and diseases. And in biology, we study both their anatomy, the morphological aspect as well, the life cycles of all these pests, to be able to address their problem of high infestation on agricultural products, reducing the productivity of agriculture. But biology has come to the rescue of agriculture in these studies and is helping agricultural activities in bringing out the best out of their produce as a result of the study of pests and diseases. And you know that these diseases, most of them are caused by pathogens and other defects, nutritional defects. Biology has given agriculture the basis upon which to get the best yield in their activities, be it crop production or animal production. And so this area also has been greatly influenced by the biological studies. The next one we have to look into is in the study of nature of the soil. In biological aspect, the soil has also been studied to a great extent. As regards the components of soil, the texture of soil, how does it affect living things? Even in the ecological studies of the environment, the soil is a major part of biology and biological components because numerous organisms dwell in the soil. And also, most of this crop production, what helps them a great deal is the activities of microbial organisms in the soil. It is biology that has given the basis for the study of these microbes and their actions in the soil. I will give you an example. There are microbes like the nitrogen-fixing bacteria. They dwell in the soil, the non-symbiotic ones, like the Clostridium, the Azotobacter, and the nostoc. They dwell in the soil and they help to a great extent in fixing atmospheric nitrogen into the soil and making the soil rich in nitrogenous minerals available for plants to make use of and grow. And as a result, plants are yielded in their high capacity and in their best yield form. So if the study of microbes by biology has given agriculture such a base, then it is worth studying. It is worth studying. So biology is the mother of agriculture. I say it again with all due respect. As a result of these effects we are mentioning here, without biology, agricultural produce and agricultural activities would have been hampered, impeded, and underdeveloped. So the next area that biology has helped a great deal is in the study of genetics. My dear, I need to tell you that as regards crop production, animal production, that genetics or the study of genes has to a great extent influenced agriculture. Most of the poultry products we have today and animal production that we do have today, both in cattle rearing, in sheep rearing, in poultry farming and the rest of them, even in fisheries. As a result of the study of genetics, we are having maximum yield at the moment because of genetical studies. The study about genes. How can gene influence life? How can gene be used? Let me give you an example. In the issue of pests, of diseases of plants and animals, through the study of genetics, we have been able to discover ways of tackling some pests in a genetic way. In other words, as an example, we can influence their breathing abilities by making them to become sterile, unable to reproduce. And we introduce those ones that are sterile into the community of those pests, and it will shortcut their reproductivity and allow plants and animals to be well produced for both human and other industrial utilization. So genetics has helped to a great extent. Most of these days we even see that most of the crops that are being harvested are in their biggest of sizes compared to what has been in the past, all because of the study of genetics. If you see most of the foreign cows, like the American cow, the British cow, they are 2 times what you get in Africa as a result of the study of genetics, maximizing their muscles and their bones and their ability to yield milk. Even this milk that we consume, like the pig milk, the Three Crown and the rest of them, is as a result of genetic studies that have been infused into agriculture that is giving a lot of this high yield of milk production. As just a spot of an example I want to place concerning genetics and agriculture, the study of genetics in biology, which is a great deal. Now, the last that we're going to treat is in ecological studies. What is ecology? The study of the environment and the interactions that go on within the environment, both between the abiotic and biotic factors. Now, my beautiful students, you know that last term or thereabout, you studied about ecology and you found out so many things about the ecosystem. You have the biotic factors, you have the abiotic factors. All these things are studied in biology, and it has helped agriculture to a great extent in knowing how to deal with the environment and the things and the interactions that go on with their farm. Whether it is crop farm or whether it is animal farm, the study of the ecosystem has helped a great deal to know how to adapt in this regard. We will see in detail most of these things. But first and foremost, we start with the first area in which biology has affected agriculture, and that is in the study of the characteristics and classification of living things. And of course, you know that living things can be classified, all right, into 5 specific kingdoms that we have done before. Now, in this our slide, if you look at what is on your screen, the scientific study of cell, known as cytology, and the characteristics of living things have revealed the details of the natural attributes of living organisms. They also show their basic structures and functions. Now, look at what this statement is portraying. It says that the scientific study of cells, which is known as cytology. Now, when we study cell, to start from that area, it brings out the basic unit of life, which exhibits all the characteristics of a living thing. It exhibits all the characteristics of a living thing. And within a cell, you have all manner of basic structures that exhibit all those things. As we can see in this next slide, this is the picture or the diagram, as the case may be, the diagram of a living cell. The diagram of a living cell. And in this diagram, you can see that the different parts of a cell, which is known as organelles, they are there. You have the cytoplasmic membrane, you have the endoplasmic reticulum, you have the ribosomes, you have the nucleus, you have the nucleolus, you have the nuclear membrane, and the rest of them, the Golgi body. All of them, they have their particular role they play in living organisms. And what are those characteristics that we know about? We have movement, we have respiration, we have reproduction, we have excretion, we have growth, we have competition, we have adaptation. All of them are part of the characteristics of living things. And by this living cell, let's give an example anyway. Let's start with one. The endoplasmic reticulum helps in what is known as protein synthesis. And in this regard, if you talk about protein synthesis, that is under which characteristic of living thing? It is under nutrition. Nutrition is there. The next one I can pick up there, the vacuole, although it is not depicted in this particular diagram, but vacuole is a major part of living cells. And vacuole is multifunctional in dimension. You know that vacuole helps in nutrition as well in cases of unicellular organisms where you have food vacuole. It also helps in excretion and the rest of them. So vacuole plays major roles. Among them, nutrition, the other one, excretion. Now, every living thing, both crops, plants, and animals, they are all made up of what? Cells. And these cells are made up of these organelles you can see on your screen. And as a result of the study of these cells, their organelles, and their functions, one is able to adapt and relate with biological specimens that are used in agriculture, like the crops that we consume, and then the animal that we also consume and use for other purposes as agricultural produce. So the study of the cell has influenced agriculture, has adapted the farmer to his products. on how to follow it up. So this is just one aspect where biology has influenced agriculture in such a positive way. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is classification of living things. Now, as I said earlier, what is classification of living things? Classification of living things is the categorizing, if you may use the word, or the grouping of organisms in their various groups, in their various identifiable groups. It makes it easy, this classification makes it easy for you to be able to distinguish between plants and animals. What are their characteristics? What are their distinguishing features? It also helps you to distinguish between the unicellular organisms from the multicellular organisms. It helps you also to distinguish between the birds and the mammals, all because of classification of living things. So you find out that living things help the farmer, classification of living things help the farmer to know which type of organism he or she is dealing with. What are the characteristics? What are the close species connected to what he or she is cultivating or rearing? So classification of living things helps to a great deal. It is classification of living things that specified and distinguish the fishes, that is in the class of species, from the mammals, where you have the goat, the sheep, and the rest. And it also helps the farmer to recognize them by their physical features, easy recognition of their physical features in order for them to know how to go about the type of feeding they need, the type of environment they stay in, even in the ecological studies, as we're going to be seeing later, to know that the class species are aquatic in nature, that they need water to be produced in, just like in fisheries. While the mammals, in understanding their classes and the herbivores and the carnivores, to know the adaptive approach for them to be reared and be produced in their maximum capacity. So classification of living things, as you can see on your screen, where you have the various kingdoms of living organisms, which is a study in biology, which has helped agriculture to a great extent to adapt to their agricultural activities. I want to give you an example. You know, in the class where we treated about classification of plants, for instance, we have that plants are classified into vascular and non-vascular plants. Of course, the vascular plants can also be called the tracheophytes, as you know very well. Now, if you go down further, you will meet the spermatophytes, the pteridophytes, the bryophytes, and then the talophytes. All these things are different categories of plants which are studied in biology and which has helped agriculture to adapt to its best practices, to know how to handle each crop and each animal. And these are all part of what biology studies. So you can agree with me that biology is the mother of agriculture. Without biology, agriculture cannot stand as a study and also as a practice. So you find out that all those classifications where you have the talophytes, the bryophytes, and the pteridophytes, and the spermatophyta as well. Under them you have the angiosperms and the gymnosperms, the monocotyledons, and the dicotyledons. All these things, they have their distinguishing features and characteristics that distinguish them from one plant to the other, which helps the farmer to know which one he is dealing with and the best possible way to deal with them. Classification. Nevertheless, these classifications I've mentioned to you are pure biological oriented. Now, in agriculture, there is agricultural classification of crops in particular. And we're going to be treating it. Let's see some agricultural classifications of crops, apart from the one you know specifically that biology has dealt with. And there are so many crops according to agricultural classification. Now, numerous crops are classified, some crops are classified as cereals. Others are classified as legumes. Others are classified as root crops. Others are classified as fiber crops, and the rest of them. We're going to be seeing how the agricultural classification has played a role also in this relevance of biology to agriculture. Let's look at the first group according to agricultural classification. And in this first group, we're going to be seeing a group of crops that are called cereals. Cereals are crops mainly gotten from the family of the grasses, where you have the numerous grasses. Yes, somebody might be surprised. Yes, we consume some grasses and their fruits, but not as the goats do, my dear, because rice is a grass. Rice is a grass, but we consume the grain of that grass. We'll have other ones. We have the wheat. We have the millet. We also have maize. Maize is part of the family of grasses. And we consume their grains, we consume their fruits, which nourish our body with a lot of nutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins. Now, what are cereals? According to agricultural classification, cereals are grains, mostly grains that we cultivate. Mainly we consume the grains of those grasses. And we classify them under the group called cereals. You can agree with me that cereals are mostly the staple food of different regions of the world today. Maize is one of the world's staple food we have. Maize, rice, all of them belong to cereal. Millet, wheat, and the rest of them. They are all cereals. So this group of grasses that produce grains that we consume are called cereals. As you can see on your screen, you have these different cereals. You have the maize and the rice. As you can see on your screen, these are the maize, the different species of maize. You have the rice, you have the wheat, the millet, and the rest of them. All of them are part of the cereals that we consume and that are produced in agriculture. That's number one agricultural classification of crops. Then the next one we're going to look at are the legumes. The legumes are cultivated mainly for their proteinous content, their proteinous nutrients which they contain. And what are among these legumes? We have the beans. We have the melon. In Igbo, we call it egusi. And so many other, even the peas that we consume, even the green beans, the peas that we consume, they are all part of these legumes. All right? Both your green peas and the peas family that we have. You have your beans, the different species of beans. They are all part of legumes. Why do we cultivate them? We cultivate them because of their high protein content. All right? And they appear in pods, fruit covers known as what? Pods, which when they are dry, they can dehiscize. In other words, they can break open from their sides and liberate the seeds inside. These things are part of the things we consume and that are produced agriculturally. All right? So this is the next group of crops known as what? Legumes. As you can see examples on your screen. You can see those of the melon family there. You can see the beans. All right? All of them are all under the group of called legumes. Then the next group of crops, according to agricultural classification, include the root crops. What are the root crops? Things like cassava, cocoyam, carrot. Carrot is still part of root crops as well. Those ones that are grown underground. As you can see on your screen, you have your potato, your sweet potato, you have your cassava. Also inclusive in this is the yam. All right, although yam is a stem tuber. When we get into these root crops, we begin to classify them. Are they root tubers or are they stem tubers? But because they are all underground, that's why they are classified here as root crops. All right, as you can see on your screen, that's the cassava, that's the sweet potato, that's cassava, this is yam, and then the potato as well. You also have cocoyam, although not on your screen, but cocoyam is part of root crops. Now, these ones are mostly starch-filled crops. They enrich our body with a lot of carbohydrates, and they are classified as root crops. Now, we have the vegetables. Of course, the different parts of a plant, like the leaves, the stem at times, when they are herbaceous, soft ones, and the rest of them, the fruits most of the time are classified as vegetables. As you can see on your screen, you have the vegetables, different types, the lettuce, the cucumber, you have so many of them, your tomato, and the rest of them. You have the spring onions, and all whatnot you can see on your screen. They all belong to vegetables, even the green vegetables. Even the pumpkins and the scent leaves and the rest of them, they are all part of the vegetables that we consume, and they are produced in agricultural activities. So these are the group of plants or crops that are known as what? Vegetables. They are different from root crops, they are different from legumes, they are also different from cereals. The next group of crops, according to agricultural classification, are the ones they call fruits. You know, fruits are produced from flowers, mostly from flowering plants, the angiosperms. That is where you get fruits. Like I said, these fruits are produced from what? Flowers. Whether through the means of fertilization or non-fertilized fruits, as in the case of parthenogenesis. You know, when a fruit is produced without fertilization, that process is called parthenogenesis. So there are parthenocarpic fruits available and there are fertilized ones available, but they are all produced from the flowering plants. So as you can see on your screen, these fruits are filled with a lot of vitamins and mineral salts. As you can see your banana, you can see your orange, you can see your apple, all right? You can see your apple down here. Then you have your melon, your banana, your pawpaw, your mango, and some of them your berries, your pineapple. All of them make up what is known as fruits in agricultural classification. The next group of crops known for agricultural classification are the beverages. The beverages, we mainly get them from our cocoa plants, our coffee plants. We also get them from the tobacco plants. All these plants I've mentioned, I mentioned cocoa, coffee, tobacco, we can get a lot of food drinks from them. Your Milo, your Bonvita, your Ovaltine, all those things are produced from these crops under beverages. We use them to produce all these drinks, as you can see on your screen. You have cocoa drinks of different species. And then you have the berry on this side, and even the cocoa that is even used for chocolate production, as you can see. So this group of plants I mentioned are classified as beverages. They are beverages. Now, the next one we're going to see are the spices. The spices are those ones that give flavor to our food. They also contain some nutrients as well. It's not just the flavor aspect of it, but because of their special flavor, which they add to food substances, we group them under spices. And what are those spices? We have the pepper, as you can see on your screen. The different species of pepper, whether they call it foreign pepper or they call it local pepper, and whatever it is, they are all under spices. So have your ginger and the rest of them, although in this form is grinded. Okay, you have your ginger, you have your other forms of spices that are being used, even curry leaves that are used as spices to spice up our food and make it to have some particular aroma to make it appealing to the stomach. So these things are known as spices. There are different types of them. The grinded forms are on this side of your screen. We have the grinded ginger, the grinded scent leaf, the peppers, of them. All of them make up the group of plants known, or crops known as spices. Now, the next group are the oils. Now, among some fruits and seeds in some crops, like the palm tree, in the palm tree we have the palm fruit. The palm fruit is filled with a lot of oil, which when processed, these oils are squeezed out of the seeds and the fruits. We also have oils in coconut, because we have coconut oil, we have groundnut oil, we have soybean oil, and the rest of them. All these things, every crop that has oil content and potentials, they are all classified under the group of crops in agricultural classification as oils. As you can see, even the olive oil and the rest of them, so those plants are the ones that are classified as oils in agriculture. Then we have the fibers. The fibers are those ones that contain lots and lots of cellulose materials, which are tough in nature. And because of their nature, they can be used. Like you can see, this is cotton on your screen. This is cotton plants. It has a lot of fibers in it. And because of it, cotton is used in the production of clothing materials. Because of the lot of cellulose materials that are so strong in them, they can be used to make the clothes. Even these clothes I'm wearing, and I'm sure peradventure the one you're wearing as well, is made of cotton. Majority of our clothing are made from these plants, fibers. The next one is the jute plant. The jute plant, where you have a lot of cellulose materials also from their plant seeds, which are also used in making a lot of clothing materials and ropes. Even the ropes we use, the long ropes that are manufactured from fiber crops. These are classified as fiber crops, the ones that contain a lot of cellulose materials in them, which are tough in nature. So these are some of the produce or the classes of crops according to agricultural dimension of classification. Now, because of time, we are going to stop here, and subsequently, we are going to continue with the other effects and relevance of biology to agriculture, and we're going to detail them out, the anatomical and physiological functions, and the rest of them, the ecological studies. How does it affect the study of soil? How does it affect agriculture? And I want to thank you so much for being part of this class, as we call it a day today. Thank you.